What's up, everyone? Victory Lane LLC. I'd hate to had a comment on YouTube. We've been putting our videos on YouTube as well, so if you're not subscribing and following there, make sure you go check out the YouTube. So everything we put on TikTok is going to be on YouTube. Some of our longer format videos, especially some of the tuning series stuff. But I got a comment today. Well, not today, it was a day ago. Anyway, can you go over how to tune for VVT limiter, or have you already done that? I'm working on a 2014 Grand Cherokee 5.7 Hemi, installed a BTR stage 2 cam with an MDS-delete and the 4-degree phaser limiter. I have the newest HP tuner, but I have never done this before. Any advice is appreciated. So let's pull up a Hemi that does have VVT still. So this is going to be a 2015 Dodge Charger, and we're going to go through our airflow tab right there. You're going to find a section that says variable camshaft. So when you do a performance camshaft or any of these staged builds, some of them will come with what's called a phaser limiter, or they'll call it like a 4-degree phaser limiter or what have you. But the one thing you want to pay attention to is whether they're talking about cam degrees or crank degrees. Because remember, cam degrees will usually be lower numbers like that 4-degree. That's probably BTR referencing the physical movement of the camshaft. But some of them you will have in crank degrees. So crank degrees, if you have a 4-degree limiter, crank degrees, it would be 8 degrees. So let's not muddy the water. Most of them will probably reference that, but be sure you look at your specs and see if it's crank degrees or cam degrees. So what you want to pay attention to, most of the time the 5.7 Hemis, you're going to look at your exhaust max. We do not have a separate intake camshaft, so all this stuff is populated and it is there in a Hemi, but we pay attention to the exhaust cam. So Hemis start in their, it's not advanced, but it starts in their advanced position or neutral locked position, lock pin. It's called lock pin. And you'll look at your exhaust max here, which is 130 degrees. So if you have a physical limiter, a 4-degree limiter, what that means is from 130 degrees, which you won't see in the 5.7s, most of them are going to hit their max at 128 degrees. So 130, you'll only have 4 degrees of movement to retard. So your exhaust minimum is not 83 anymore. And we're going to have to adjust our VVT tables to compensate for that. So again, most of your 5.7 Hemis are not going to get too far above that 128. So we're going to minus that 4 degree of movement. 124 is going to be your new minimum. Now, as you've done that, you're going to come through here and you're going to make sure that any of these tables that correspond below that 124, this is what you're going to be adjusting and what you're going to be tuning. So this is not achievable. So we can no longer get down to that 83 degrees, 116, 117. All this stuff here is going to change. So if we leave this there, we may trigger a cam sweep for a physical movement that cannot be made, and you'll trigger check engine light, maybe limp mode, what have you. So same thing in these tables. You will adjust these to reflect your new exhaust minimum. Wide open throttle stuff, all these degrees of cam position. So again, here we are. As we lay down onto it, the cam retards, and this is not going to be achievable anymore. So 124 is going to be our max exhaust, or excuse me, our minimum exhaust that we can retard from the 128 that we see in like VCM scanner. So most of the time, 4 degrees of movement, unless you're just chasing numbers on a dyno, usually it's not going to be something that you're really going to feel. 4 degrees of movement, sometimes you'd be better off to just lock out the system. Just go in and disable your VVT, But if you are chasing those numbers for every little bit of horsepower, and you're retarding the cam events on the top end to stretch that power band out, absolutely fine. You do you. But that's essentially what that means when you have a limiter. You're gonna have to change your exhaust minimums. And if you're in neural network, same thing applies. If you're still running neural network, your exhaust minimum is going to change. So that 4 degrees of movement, make sure you update your training values. And again, we don't have an intake cam, but you're still going to have to update your training values for the intake side as well. So everything's going to correspond. So make sure you get that updated. Whatever your RPM is that you're going to be revving out to, if we're going to be, running 7,500 RPMs, all these training values need to be correct if you're still doing A&N. If not, speed density, that's fine. Most people are going to revert to speed density if it's a performance camshaft anyway. But again, make sure you're plugging in your new stop point, and it's good practice to plug in your new stop point over here. So if you've got 145.5, again, none of this matters as far as it being disabled, but the math should still be there on the intake side as well. So minus your 4 degrees right there, that would be 141.5 would be your new minimum. And you would do the same thing, come through here and corresponding tables, tune your new VVT strategy. So again, 4 degrees is probably something that you're not going to notice as far as movement if you still have VVT active. It may just be better to just disable it altogether, but that's what that means.